Hey, this is Brooke, functional medicine dietitian specializing in fertility, and this is the Fertility Dietitian podcast, where I help you uncover the barriers that are preventing you from optimizing your fertility and teach you how to work with your body to finally take home a healthy baby. Each week, I will be diving into different topics on fertility and sharing my perspective on physiology, metabolic health, nutrition, and lifestyle approaches that have helped hundreds of couples get pregnant even after years of heartache. My goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to take back control of your fertility. Happy listening. Today, we're talking about something that I know carries a lot of weight emotionally for many couples: recurrent miscarriage. And no matter when the loss happens, it is really heavy and can be so challenging to navigate. But today we're going to talk about recurrent loss around the 6-week mark, really between that 5 to 7 week window. If this is part of your story, I want to start by saying something that I truly believe after years of working in fertility. You're not broken. Your body is not failing you. And most importantly, this pattern is often giving us really valuable information. The timing of loss gives us even more specific information about where to dig deeper and how to better support your body to reduce risk of another loss. It usually tells us something about the body, why the body is struggling to support at that stage of development. And once we understand those signals, we can begin working with your body to improve the environment that pregnancy is developing in. So today we're going to talk about what is happening biologically around that 6 weeks of pregnancy, what patterns of loss at this stage can tell us, the most common root causes I see clinically, and what you can do to greatly decrease the risk of another loss. My goal today is that you walk away from this episode feeling empowered and hopeful, knowing that fertility and pregnancy outcomes are not as fixed as you may have been led to believe. So let's start by talking about what happens around that 6 weeks of gestation. So really around the 5 to 7 week mark, pregnancy is entering a very important transition phase. The earliest days after implantation, the embryo relies heavily on signals from the uterine lining and the hormone progesterone, which is produced by that corpus luteum. But around 6 weeks, several major shifts occur. The embryo begins to have more rapid cellular division, massive mitochondrial activity, increased oxygen demand, early placental formation, and deeper communication with the maternal immune system. This is a point where pregnancy shifts from that initial implantation to more sustained development. And the placenta begins forming its early vascular network around this time, and the maternal immune system must shift into a tolerant state, meaning it recognizes the embryo as something to support rather than something to defend against. If there are disruptions in areas like metabolic signaling, immune regulation, inflammation, blood flow, or embryo quality, this is often the stage where those challenges become visible, which is why repeated losses around the same week can actually provide really important clues. So pattern recognition in fertility is so important and helpful, and it's okay to need support. You don't have to know how to do this or how to navigate it. Adding to your support team can be so helpful for this. One of the biggest differences between conventional fertility care and the work that we do here at the Fertility Dietitian is that we look for patterns. Many couples are told that their miscarriages were random or bad luck, just chromosomal abnormalities that can't be fixed. This is typically not true, because when we see multiple losses happening around the same week, sometimes even with IVF embryos, that pattern usually means something about the environment the pregnancy is developing in needs support. Your body is communicating with you, and those signals deserve to be investigated, not dismissed. And it can also have to do with the actual embryo itself, too, and how genetically capable it is to continue developing. But that doesn't mean there's nothing you can do about that. Okay. We can shift chromosomal abnormalities, improve overall egg quality, and we can even improve that DNA health and reducing DNA fragmentation in sperm, which makes a big difference here too. But other areas that we're considering with this timing of loss include metabolic health. So one of the most common root causes that we see for early pregnancy loss is metabolic dysfunction. This includes things like insulin resistance. And to evaluate insulin resistance, we have to be looking at fasting insulin as well as HOMA-IR. So insulin response at the cellular level is a much deeper look than just a hemoglobin A1C and a glucose. Okay, that's not telling you the whole story of what's happening with insulin. Insulin's super important. Elevated triglycerides, also very, very important to consider. Chronic inflammation, this can be looked at in markers like CRP and homocysteine, for instance, and unstable blood sugar regulation as a whole. So that can actually be separate from that insulin response too. But when insulin levels are elevated, it affects the reproductive system in multiple ways. It increases oxidative stress, which can damage egg quality. It disrupts mitochondrial energy, which embryos rely on heavily in early development. And it can impair early placental blood flow, which becomes critically important around that 6-week transition. The encouraging part is that metabolic health is extremely responsive to change. Nutrition and movement and sleep and targeted nutrition support can dramatically improve insulin sensitivity and in turn improve fertility outcomes. We also want to look at immune system patterns. So another major piece of the puzzle in recurrent miscarriage is that immune system regulation. Pregnancy requires a very delicate balance within the immune system. Your body has to stay strong enough to defend against infections, but also shift into a state that tolerates the developing embryo. When the immune system is chronically activated or dysregulated, that balance becomes harder to achieve. And this is where we often begin seeing patterns like elevated inflammation or autoimmune activity, histamine intolerance, chronic infections, or gut driven immune activation. Subtle shifts in physiology or things that may not seem directly related to fertility can actually have a big impact on implantation and early pregnancy development. Chronic gut infections are often overlooked because they're not even considered in a conventional approach. And this one area that is frequently overlooked in fertility care overall is just the gut microbiome. The gut and the immune system are deeply connected, and about 70% of the immune system resides in the gut, which means chronic gut infections can quietly drive inflammation and immune dysregulation throughout the body. Things like H. pylori and parasites and bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, and opportunistic pathogens can all influence systemic inflammation and immune signaling. Many of these infections go untested or unnoticed in conventional fertility workups. And one of the tools that we often use here at the Fertility Dietitian to investigate this deeper is the GI map stool test. It helps identify infections, microbial imbalances, and inflammatory markers that may be creating an environment that is less supportive for pregnancy. Another factor that plays a surprisingly large role in fertility and immune balance is minerals. So minerals like zinc and magnesium, copper, selenium, sodium, potassium are all essential for regulating inflammation, creating energy, hormone signaling, and mitochondrial function. When mineral balance is disrupted, we often see shifts in stress resilience, metabolic function, immune regulation, and reproductive hormone signaling. Okay, so all of this is very much intertwined. When there are when there are mineral imbalance and when there are gut imbalances, it can even lead to mineral imbalance because we're not digesting and absorbing nutrients appropriately. Okay, so one of the tools that we use to assess mineral status deeper is an HTMA or hair tissue mineral analysis test. This test allows us to look at mineral patterns and understand how the body is managing stress, inflammation, and metabolic regulation as a whole. Correcting mineral imbalances can significantly improve the internal environment that pregnancy develops in. So it's definitely a big foundational piece that we want to make sure we are supporting appropriately. Another pattern that we frequently see in recurrent miscarriage is thyroid autoimmunity. Even when thyroid hormone levels appear normal, the presence of antibodies like TPO antibodies or thyroglobulin antibodies can significantly increase miscarriage risk. This is because thyroid autoimmunity reflects immune system activation that can interfere with implantation and early pregnancy maintenance. Supporting thyroid health and calming immune activation can be an important part of improving pregnancy outcomes as a whole. Histamine regulation is another piece that sometimes shows up in recurrent pregnancy loss patterns as well. Histamine plays a role in immune signaling, vascular changes, and inflammatory responses. So very important in those weeks of development that we're talking about decreasing risk for loss. When histamine levels are chronically elevated due to gut dysfunction, infections, or nutrient imbalances, it can create an environment that is more inflammatory and less stable for early pregnancy development. Supporting your gut health and your mineral balance and reducing inflammatory triggers can often help stabilize these patterns. And overall, supporting your body moving forward. When couples come to us after miscarriage or recurrent loss, the focus isn't just on trying again. The focus is always on asking, what environment are the egg and sperm developing in? What environment is the embryo implanting into? And how can we make that environment as supportive as possible? We're not here to force reproduction. That's not helpful for outcomes. Okay. We're here to learn how to listen to your body, how to work with your body in order to decrease the risk of loss and support a healthy pregnancy. Some of the most impactful strategies include stabilizing your blood sugar, improving your insulin sensitivity, addressing gut infections, supporting mineral balance, calming your immune system, and supporting immune regulation, supporting thyroid health, and reducing systemic inflammation. These are the foundations that help the body feel safe and supported to sustain pregnancy. We have to have our body feel safe and supported. If you have experienced miscarriage, especially multiple losses, I know how easy it is to feel like your body is failing you. See over and over again that the body has been sending signals that sometimes need a different type of attention or a different look, another look to be able to pull out those patterns. And when we listen to those signals and learn what those patterns are, we can learn to better support your body accordingly. And then your outcome can change. Your fertility is not fixed. A quality responds to your environment. Sperm quality responds to the environment. The uterine environment responds to the environment that it is in. And subtle shifts in physiology, things that often go overlooked, can make a huge difference in pregnancy outcomes. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who may need to hear this message. Recurrent miscarriage does not mean it's the end of your fertility story. Often it simply means your body is asking for deeper investigation, a different perspective, and a different type of support. And once those underlying barriers are uncovered and addressed, many couples go on to have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies. Thank you so much for being here today. And remember, your body was designed to support fertility. Sometimes it just needs the right conditions to do so. If you're looking for more individualized support, you know where to find me. Hope to see you next time here at the Fertility Dietitian podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fertility Dietitian podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review to let me know what topics you want more of or less of. If you want to keep learning, subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out my website for more info on my private coaching program, Master Your Fertility, or my membership community, Fertility Blueprint. And don't forget my digital store. Come say hi on YouTube and Instagram. See you in the next episode.